our findings are accurate. That's the Ghana Statistical Service's response to the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Ekuffo-Dampare, on the latest corruption prevalence survey, which ran Ghana Police Service as the most corrupt public institution in the country. This follows an outright rejection of the findings of the survey by Dr. George Ekuffo-Dampare, who described the research as heavily challenged and corrupted. Now, SHRAJ, UNOCD, and the Ghana Statistical Service, as well as the CDD's Afrobarometer, all ranked the police service poorly. In a 5-page letter, the IGP said there is a high risk that the research may have been affected by a long-held stereotype against the police. In all, the police service raised 14 concerns, including the use of a selective ranking. The research failed to capture other public institutions, at least 13 of them, including SHRAJ and the Ghana Statistical Service, which undertook the research. They also say there was disaggregation in certain public institutions, having the tendency to affect weighting in ranking. Again, the Ghana Revenue Authority, customs officers, and tax officers were part of the reasons the police cited. Number 5, Ghana Health Service, doctors and nurses, plus other health workers. Now, let's bring in the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobena Enim, to help us answer some questions here. Prof, thank you so much for agreeing to speak to us. To start with, was the Statistical Service included in this research? Prof, kindly unmute so we can hear what you're telling us.
Thank you very much. Great. So the Statistical Service as an institution is not in the report, is not in the questionnaire. But this gives us the opportunity to try and appreciate what guided the research that we did. We have produced a statistical product, and we need to be clear in our minds that the object of the work was not to rank institutions, and that didn't feed into the methodological processes that we went through in doing this exercise. However, having done the work, we realized that we have enough responses to do some sector or institution level computation of the prevalence. So to begin with, anytime you want to compute a statistical product, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what are you measuring? And what we are talking about here is the prevalence of payment of bribe in the country. And the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically indicator 16.5.1, clearly encourages countries to measure prevalence in a specific way for purposes of international comparison. And once you are doing that, you enumerate for the measurement 2 things: people who were asked to pay bribe and they paid, and people who were asked to pay bribe and did not pay. How do you compare this population of people who either pay bribe, or those who were asked to pay bribe and did not pay? The denominator are those who made contact with public officials. So the first thing we need to keep in mind is this data collection is not from an institutional perspective. This data collection is from a household individual perspective. So specifically, we identified 15,000 households based on our recent population and housing census. And we got into these 15,000 households, identified an adult member, and preceded the data collection with whether in the past 12 months you've made contact with a public official. And then we had subsequent questions that led us to arrive at the prevalence. The other thing that we need to bear in mind is, because the data is coming from the household level, not from the institutional level, it will be pretty difficult to capture all the institutions that we have in the country. What makes this difficult is that when you are doing sampling and you want to do analysis at different levels of disaggregation, you ask yourself, how can each category be represented in the sample that you have? We have in excess of 300 public institutions in the country. We sampled 15,000 households. So once you put that into your sampling procedure, even if they are mutually exclusive, you are getting a maximum of about 50 per institution out of the 15,000. You cannot do any meaningful disaggregation at the regional level and any other demographic level, i.e. education, age categories, and so on. We did a sampling based on the regional disaggregation district, and rural urban. And from the sampling point of view, we didn't capture institutions. But as I indicated, because the work or the measurement is based on having had contact with a public official, we identified based on literature and previous studies the institutions that have had the institutions that have contact with the public. We did a test ahead of this exercise, and we also looked at the GLSS 7, which we have a module on governance, peace, and corruption. So once you go through all this and you have in mind that you are targeting institutions that engages frequently with the public, that is why we arrived at those institutions. Let me also put on record that based on the pre-test and information from the Living Standard Survey, the questionnaire has module on has a category other public and civil service institutions. And if you look at the numbers that we got there, they were pretty negligible, because how many people in the public would engage Ghana Statistical Service? How many people would engage TRAJ? How many people would engage Narcotics Audit Service relative to the Ghana Police? And why we need to be clear in our minds that the objective was not based on ranking. The measurement was those who made contact with the police. So we call it within institution prevalence. Those who made contact with the police, how many of them paid bribe? So it isn't an issue of you look at those who paid bribe in Ghana and spread them across the institutions. So whether we took into consideration what is happening in audit service, Ghana Ports and Harbors, we looked at the institutions that engages more with the public, and for that particular institution, we computed the percentage within that institution.
But the police also thinks that stereotyping could probably have worked against them, such that someone who has not even gotten into contact with them could say the police because of what they hear always about the police service. Couldn't that have been a factor?
I mean, based on the computation approach that I've just shared with you, there's no way stereotyping got into it. Unless the argument is that we ended up getting a lot of the public having engaged the police, which we do not need any data collection exercise to do. As I indicated to you earlier on, different demographics, different geographical areas would have more contact with police by virtue of the work that they do. And let's keep in mind that when you are measuring prevalence, which is one of the issues that they put in their letter, you should have made contact at least once. The measurement of prevalence does not include the number of times that one individual engages the public official. And the reason why we do that is immediately you discount for the number of times that a public official engages with the public. You sort of compromise the approach to eradicating the payment of bribes. The reason why we say that is whether you engage somebody 10 times or not, the point is that bribe payment should not occur. So once you start discounting by, I engage the public more, so once you are computing the statistics, discount it by that, then what are we trying to do as a country? Once it's not good, it's not good. And then you don't have to go ahead and say that I meet the public much often, so there is a need to discount that frequency when you are calculating the frequency.
So what would be your advice to the Ghana Police Service on how they approach this research?
Let me put on record that we have worked closely with the Ghana Police Service right from the conceptualization of this survey. To contextualize the work, we set up a steering committee and a technical committee, of which the Ghana Police Service was represented. They have been pretty much involved in the finalization of the questionnaire, the analysis of the data, and some highlights of how the results will be put out there. We have gone ahead to decide that we're going to do stakeholder engagement with institutions, including the Ghana Police Service, on the kind of disaggregation that in the letter that we have all read, they are requesting for. And it is that conversation that we need to have. And secondly, put to the public that you cannot use only one survey to say that this is the extent of a socioeconomic challenge that you are having. That is why we need to complement these surveys with other administrative data, because I hear others say that the volume of bribe payments in some institutions are so high that for you to say an average of 348 Ghana cedis is the bribe that we pay in Ghana is not realistic. I do associate with that reason, but this is where you need to think about other data sources to really complement. And I'm happy Ghana Statistical Service for the first time has put out a figure that corruption in Ghana for 2021, bribe payment in Ghana for 2021 among public officials is 5 billion. And it's generating the conversation that we all need to have to appreciate how this is affecting our macroeconomic indicators.
Prof, thank you so much that you could find time to join us on our news.